We thrive under a certain amount of pressure, and I used to feel like maybe that was a bad thing. Like if I was really a calm, peaceful person, everything would be like easy and smooth. But actually, it's really cool that as human beings, we thrive under challenges. We really need to be pushing ourselves and learning new skills in our life. So today, I want to break down something called the Yerkes-Dodson Law. It's a law of motivation, and it essentially states that we need the right amount of pressure in order to do our best and most enjoyable work. I want to look at what that law is and how it works, and then how we can actually apply it in our own lives. We have this nice chart here, and you can see that the Yerkes-Dodson Law breaks things down into a graph that always comes out as a bell curve. Along the x-axis we have pressure and the y-axis is performance. So you can see on the far left that without a lot of pressure, right, if we have a project with no deadlines, we're not very interested in it, there's no external or internal strong motivation to get it done, our performance will be low, right? We might be bored, we might do the work kind of sloppily, we won't get a lot done, or we may just never get it done. On the flip side, on the far right, if you have a lot of pressure, like creating tons of stress and anxiety, you feel like the situation is out of your control, you don't know how you're going to get it done, and if you do get it done, it's going to be terrible because you have no experience. That also leads to like really poor or low levels of performance. We tend to get locked down and feel like we can't move or make progress because we kind of don't know how. So we want the sweet spot right in the middle where the performance is really high, where there's a good amount of pressure. We feel interested in what we're doing. We have a challenge, something to overcome that's exciting to us or interesting to work on, and then we'll get really good work done, and it helps us lock into what's called flow state, where we're really focused, really productive. That's when time goes by really quickly. So how do we get this ideal amount of pressure? And of course, that's the tricky part, and there are a few different factors. The first one is, what is your skill level for whatever the task is in front of you, right? If you have a ton of experience in this area, you're very skilled, odds are good you can handle more pressure to make it more of a challenge. Obviously, if you have no skill, taking on a totally new thing is going to be a challenge in and of itself. You might want to try and remove anything else that would make it challenging because you don't want to fall into the stressed out and no longer productive area either. The next one is literally your own personality. And I know that's broad, but some people thrive under like really high intensity, high pressure situations. Maybe they thrive under like a lot of noise and sort of chaos. They like to think with a ton of stimulus going on. Other people need things to be just very calm, very quiet. Maybe they need a really flexible amount of time in order to do very creative work. So you need to be able to take into account who you are, how you like to work, what your pace generally is. Some people need more laid back, easygoing settings in order to get work done. And that is not a bad thing, but it's really important to note, because if you throw yourself into a really high energy pressure situation, you might feel like, wow, I am terrible at this. I don't know why I can't handle it like these other people can. It's because you're applying way more pressure on yourself than they are on themselves, because you're a different person, right? So we want to take our personality into account. Then the third one is something that's called trait anxiety. And there are different types of anxiety. Situational anxiety is the other type, right? All of us have situations that make us anxious. Trait anxiety is, as an individual, as a person, do you tend towards running more or less anxious? If you tend towards being easily anxious, you're not going to want to apply a lot of extra outside pressure, because you know you will tip more easily into the stressed out part of the graph. We want to find what balances well for us, and how anxious an individual is plays into that. And then the last one is simply the complexity of the task. Is this a really difficult, advanced level of work you're doing? So maybe you have a high level of skill here, and this is just a step up. That might be perfect for you, right? This might be just the right amount of pressure, like just enough of a new challenge compared to what you've done before. Whereas if you have very little experience and it's very complex, you might be like, okay, this is already sending me way too far on one side. I need to bring in what assistance I can to bring myself back to the middle, right? So we want to look at how complex it is as well. Okay, so these are the factors to take into account. Literally for ourselves in like our daily lives, what are some checkpoints we can do when we're facing a project or a task to see if we're moving too far to one side of the graph. The first one is to avoid all or nothing thinking, and that's something I've fallen into myself for sure. I like to see that things are getting done right away, that I'm making a ton of progress, and sometimes I feel like the slow and steady is frustrating and slow, and I can view it as if I'm not making any progress, and that's a mistake. That allows me to throw myself into the anxiety end of things because I feel like I have to do everything all at once. Not productive, because then ultimately I just get kind of frozen and locked up and I feel like, oh, I don't know how to move. And because obviously the flip side of that is nothing. If I can't get everything done, let's not do anything. Okay, so watch out for that. Avoid all or nothing thinking. The second one sounds tricky. You can actually apply this, and it is to find a way to care about the project you're doing. Anytime we're faced with a task for which we have very little interest, it is hard to get motivated, right? And we're falling way onto the left side of the graph where our work is going to be sloppy, we're going to do it late, we don't really care. Maybe no one's looking over our shoulder to see that it gets done really well. And that can lead to just frustration, right? Where we really hate the work we're doing, we're irritated that it's been given to us, we don't enjoy the task we're doing, and we're not doing work that we're proud of either. So find a way to care is really broad advice, but it's something we usually can do. And the first thing to try is simply to dig a little deeper. When I don't care about something, it's usually because I've written it off. I think, well, I already know how that works and I don't like it, or I don't care, it's unimportant. That's a very satisfying way to think because it puts me in a place of like power, of thinking like, yeah, I'm above this work, I don't need to do it, it doesn't matter. It also leads to me feeling really irritated and dissatisfied that it's work that I'm doing. So the first thing is to give whatever task you're faced with the benefit of the doubt. If I can stop and say, okay, this is important to someone. Someone cares about this. Let me try and figure out why they care about it. Maybe you need to do a little bit of research and dig into it. A lot of things are more interesting when you dig into them. Or maybe it's about empathy and trying to imagine the people to whom this will be valuable. And what is it that they see in it that maybe you could learn to care about. So we can try these methods to help ourselves to care. Once in a while, that still doesn't work, and it's just a really bummer situation, and we really don't want to do the work and we can't find value in it. Set an outside stimulus, meaning reward yourself somehow. Set a totally external reward that has nothing to do with the task itself and say, okay, I hate studying for this class. I have tried to find value in it. I cannot find a single interesting thing about this course. It doesn't resonate with me at all as an individual. Other people might like it. That's good for them. This isn't working. Besides the fact that hopefully you care about maybe getting a good grade in the class, so there's some external influence, maybe give yourself another and say, all right, if you read that chapter, that boring chapter that you hate, then you can go eat ice cream afterwards. I mean, that would kind of work for me. Or maybe you need a bigger motivation, right? That you're not going to hang out with your friends until you get this task done. Or take that day trip you've been wanting to take until you get the task done. You can set an external reward, and that might work too. But if you can, find a way to care. And then the third really important thing we can do for ourselves in trying to stay right in this sweet spot of just the right amount of pressure is to manage our anxiety. So if we go back to this idea of studying for a class, let's say it's finals week, you have big projects coming up, things that you really want to do well. They might be more challenging. There's a lot of pressure already in place to perform well here. Many of us will jump to feeling like, okay, I must study as much as I can, so I'm going to stay up for the next 2 nights just straight through if I need to, so I can get the hours in that I need to get in. The problem with that is you're very, very easily going to tip yourself into the far side of the graph where you're totally stressed out. We have to keep in mind the way our bodies function. When we're super tired and we're not sleeping, our brains will not move quickly. All of the things that it needs to do will be hampered, and we're definitely upping all of the stress that we're feeling. We need time to rest. So we need to take into account what our bodies need and then what we as individuals need. It will be more effective to do less work in a really good, productive, happy, learning, working, growing space than twice the hours in the stressed out, not getting things done space. And there have been studies on, how well memory is retained, how well things are learned, Concepts don't stick nearly as well when we get out of that flow state and we're just stressed. It's important to take breaks if you need to think ahead if you know you're about to enter like a really stressful week, maybe. Think ahead, what can you put in place that will help alleviate some stress? It will make the whole experience better for you, and you will get more done and enjoy doing it more in the process. These are the factors of sort of how the graph works and how we can apply it in our lives. So if you're looking to try and apply this principle and get a little bit more motivated and maybe get more work done, hopefully in a more enjoyable way, try those 3 ideas. We want to avoid all or nothing thinking. Find a way to care about the work you're doing, especially if it's something that's really frustrating or you don't feel naturally interested in. And then manage your stress levels. Anything you can do to keep the stress at a really even keel so that we're sitting in the happy place and not the really stressed or really unmotivated kind of lazy space. And there you have it. Thank you again for watching. I hope you all get tons of really satisfying, motivated work done this week. If you found this useful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. I will see you next time.